Hi everyone, welcome to Tales of Dread. The episode is a doozy. First, a group of campers find something in the woods that scares them all so much that they start to cry. Then, a woman walking her dog is approached by something she doesn't understand. And now that you're listening, can you believe that? My statistics show that 80% of the people who watch the channel are not subscribed. What can you do? Please click that subscribe button faster than a child runs away from Brussels sprouts. Great. Let's start the stories now. A group of us went camping a few years ago. We were a group of 9 people, 6 guys and 3 girls. We all shared 3 big tents. We were all in college, and everyone was drinking, flirting, and having a good time. On the first morning, the girls were upset that one of the guys had used the area outside of their tent as a toilet during the night. Now, most of us had had a little too much to drink, but no one could remember doing something that gross. 3 of the 6 said they had woken up during the night to go to the bathroom, but they all said they had used the trees. They even said that, despite the late hour and being tired, they had taken some water to wash away the smell. We were young and stupid, but none of us were that gross, and we all liked these girls anyway. If anything, we wanted to impress them, not leave our mark on their tent the next morning. Same complaint. The girls said that the sound of someone urinating on the side of the tent woke them up. It was so loud and had such a strong flow that it woke them up after they had been sleeping for a long time. They almost got out of the tent and confronted whoever it was, but they were all too tired, it was too cold, and it was raining this time. One of the guys woke up early, around 5 a.m., and was the only one who remembers getting up to use the tree bathroom. But the girl said it was more in the middle of the night. They were starting to get irritated, and there was a strong smell of pee on the tent. However, it didn't smell just like human urine, it had a strange smell that I can't quite put my finger on. Small black square, we washed it away and wondered if we had a liar, more likely somebody asleep here in our midst like a sleepwalker. One of the guys suggested that the most likely explanation was that it was an animal, which was a good idea. Especially since, as I said, it smelled like something that wasn't quite human, and had come to the campsite at night to look for food scraps and then left a thank you note. The girl laughed at this, though, because they said that the flow was so loud the night before that they could hear where it hit the fabric, and no animal was that big or stood up to urinate like a dude. Before we went to sleep on our last night, they made us all use the bathroom on the site, not the trees. They were all suspicious, and it was clear that none of us were on their good side since we were all suspects. We also decided that the only way to find out who the bad guy was for the girls to yell when they heard the noise and look outside the tents to see who was missing. Again, around 2:30 a.m., there was yelling and screaming loud enough to wake the dead. I got up very quickly and turned on the light in my tent. 1, 2, 3, none of us did it. I heard people running around, and the other guy yelled, "Not us. Screw this." I opened the tent flap, and quickly shined the light at the girls. As I caught the person who did it with my flash beam, I heard another scream. At first, I thought it was someone following me. The person was actually very tall and skinny, and their back was to me. In my shock at seeing someone there in the dark, I hadn't noticed that this was a person with thick brown hair until it, or whatever you want to call it, turned around and screamed at me. I shrieked. Then the girl screamed, but it wasn't because this thing scared it. It was a lot to handle. If you're mad, scream like you're half human and half animal and hurt. It was the scariest thing I had ever seen. I can only say that it was very thin and skinny, covered in hair, and had a head that looked like a dog's. It looked really gross. and even though its head was all messed up, it had this horrible, terrifying scream. Once I got over my initial shock, I jumped out of the tent. I don't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I felt like I should do something. Luckily, I didn't start an attack. It screamed even louder and ran away, and when I say ran, I mean it. It was there for a minute, then it was gone in a puff. It went so fast that it almost didn't make sense. On the other hand, the girls were laughing so hard they were crying, and I wasn't far behind the other guys. The tent didn't look good, and I only caught a quick glimpse of it before it ran like the wind. All of the girls yelled and screamed that they wanted to leave, but we were able to calm them down by putting them in the two guide tents until the sun came up and it was light enough to pack up safely. No matter what that thing was, it was bad. The only thing that made us feel better was that it didn't seem to want to hurt us. Maybe it was trying to show where it lived. I don't know, but who knows what would have happened if I didn't know so many people. We will never go camping there again. My dog had been having trouble going to the bathroom, so I had to take him for longer walks more often. My dog was shy even when he wasn't sick, and he had trouble going when there were other dogs around. I had to find beaten paths for him so he wouldn't get stage fright. Even though this sounds like a bad joke, I hope you're not laughing at me. Even though he was a very shy dog, I was able to help him out and mostly find a place where he felt comfortable. It sucked because there wasn't enough light, so you had to be careful not to trip over rocks and branches that were close to the ground. Most of the time, I could barely see, so we didn't go too far, just far enough for him to do his thing. He's usually a very quiet dog, but he seems to be afraid of everything and doesn't like to be the center of attention. I was really surprised when, on a cold, wet, dark night when we had only been there a few minutes to do the job, he went crazy. He was just acting crazy, growling, barking, and whimpering, and he kept looking over at something in the trees on the path. I didn't want to fall on my backside. So I kept pulling him back to me because I thought he'd had enough and it was time, but it was extra dark and I had a stronger flashlight. So when I brought him over, I got the biggest shock of my life. I looked up and saw red lights coming from the trees, and that's when I realized they weren't lights. Whatever they were, they had powerful eyes that were watching us. I quickly turned on the light and saw the huge head of something that looked like a dog but was more like a hyena. Its eyes were glowing in a way that didn't make sense. Every tired trope from a monster book was put into this one. Except I was actually looking at it. I could only see the top half of it because it was hidden by a thicket of bushes and trees, but it looked horrifyingly big, very stocky, and covered in long, gangly, dark fur, just like I said, and it seemed to be standing straight up or maybe on all fours. I didn't know for sure, but it just stood there and stared at me intently without moving. It was so quiet, in fact. I thought for a moment that it wasn't real, that someone was pulling a joke, or that it was a fake. But then it moved its head slightly, lowering it to get a better look, and that's when I screamed and grabbed my dog. No, I picked up my dog and ran with him. I ran as fast as I could and didn't care that I might trip over rocks. I was very scared, and I didn't want to wait for this thing to grab me and pull me away. It's safe to say that my dog and I are both still alive. But have we been back to that place since then? No, to be honest, what I saw doesn't matter to me. I don't want to see it again or be in the same room as it. That was more than enough to convince me that I never want to go back into the woods. I don't know how this winter has been for you in whatever state you live in. But things have been pretty crazy here in western Pennsylvania. It was worse than usual, which is saying a lot for a state that gets a lot of snow every year. I think it's around 100 about once a year. As I already said, there is a lot of snow. If you're going to live out here, you'd better get used to it. Wildlife is something else we have a lot of in Pennsylvania, which brings me to why I'm writing you. This morning, I found tracks outside my barn. I don't quite understand. They are clearly made from a dog, but I don't know any dogs that get this big. I'll have to upload the pictures and email them to you, but I didn't want to waste your time. So I thought I'd ask you first to make sure it's okay before sending them over. They're pretty big, at least 12 inches, if not bigger. We're talking about big dog prints. Whoever made this thing must have been at least as big as a grizzly bear. Even though it doesn't seem possible, I can't for the life of me think of what kind of dog could make these. The track pattern is something else that really bugs me. It's not quadrupedal, which means it's not from an animal with 4 legs. Based on how it walks, it seems to be more bipedal. You can see the pattern of the steps. It looks like someone was walking around on 2 legs and doing the other strange thing while wearing fake werewolf boots with canted heels. The tracks in the snow are pretty deep, which means that whatever made them not only had a very long stride but also must have weighed a lot. I have about 270 pounds. A bigger guy, if you will. I'm 6.2 feet tall, even when I'm wearing all my snow gear and boots. I can't make a dent half as deep as these. So, this is being done by something out there. I've heard stories about dogmen all over the Great Lakes region, from Michigan to Wisconsin and all over western Pennsylvania. I've never seen one in person, but as a child I heard so many stories about them from friends and family. I never really wanted to believe they were real, but I guess I don't have a choice anymore. The footprints are actually in a small area of woods that backs up to a large area of national forest. I'd say it's about 100 yards from my pond to the section of woods or tree line, but I haven't actually measured. The tracks went all the way from the tree line to my barn, and then just disappeared. There are no signs of where it went, and my barn is about 20 feet high, so I don't think it jumped on the roof. So, I'm not sure what to think about this. The tracks literally stop right where they meet my barn, and there are no windows or doors on the back side of the barn. I don't have any living pets right now. Just old hay and old barn stuff, so I'm not sure what kind of animal could be interested in that. I'm not sure. I have a lot more questions than answers, and I hope you can help me answer a lot of them. Thank you for taking the time.